Luis Arce is received with jubilation by supporters after his court hearing is suspended due to errors made by the prosecution. Condemnation for Peru's interior minister after his xenophobic attacks on Venezuelan migrants. And the Arab world unites to repudiate the U.S. and Israel's so-called peace plan. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, and this is From the South. The presidential candidate for Bolivia's mass IPSP party, Luis Arce Catacora, has left the prosecutor's office in La Paz after being questioned on the alleged breach of his duties. After a 3-hour hearing, prosecutors suspended the matter due to procedural mistakes, including the delivery of the subpoena to Arce minutes after he arrived from Argentina and before he passed through immigration at El Alto's airport on Tuesday. Arce and his lawyers have also yet to be made aware of the exact accusations against him and of any proof that links him to the alleged crimes. Upon his exit from the court, Arce was lifted up by supporters who had been waiting for him outside. This probe was announced a day after his nomination as presidential candidate by the Mass Party and forms part of the ongoing prosecution of party members and supporters.
Luis Arce Catacora returned to Bolivia to start his presidential campaign for the upcoming elections.
We will support Brother Arce because he represents the Bolivian people as well as the Aymara and Quechua people.
I approve of his work with Brother Evo. From Argentina, Evo will help us take back the government.
But the political persecution by the de facto government using lawfare did not diminish the happiness of Arce's return.
We are coming together to fight for economic and social stability, and we're stepping forward to defend the political project of the mass.
We have high hopes. We know Arce will remove this dictatorship and bring back democracy.
A police officer waited for Arce inside the El Alto's airport's immigration area to serve him with a legal notice. This is what Arce had to say about this.
As I left the plane, and even before I went through immigration, a police officer was waiting for me with the subpoena. This persecution is reality we have to live with now.
Arce also admitted that this legal attack could end up with his detention, as was the case 2 weeks ago with former Interior Minister Carlos Romero.
I will go to the court on Wednesday to answer their questions because I have nothing to hide. We have the truth on our side, and I will try to clear up any of their doubts.
Bolivia is headed for renewed general elections on May 3rd, which will seek to return order and democracy to the nation, following the military-backed coup that ousted President Evo Morales last November. Facing off against Arce and the Movement Towards Socialism party, there are so far 5 candidates from the coup-plotting parties.
Brazilians living in areas affected by heavy floods are trying to rebuild their homes after over 25,000 were displaced. At least 52 people have been reported dead due to heavy storms that tore through the state of Minas Gerais. Rescue efforts are ongoing as some remain missing and several thousand are in urgent need of food and temporary shelter.
My son took me out of our house on his back, so I wouldn't put my feet in the water. When he came back to get my mother, there was no street. The water was already waist high.
We have many houses that are on the riverbank, that are still filled with clay, which has to be removed. People have to give that support. I know you need food, I know you need clothes, but working is more important here today.
A state of emergency has been declared in Chile's northern Atacama region after floods and mudslides left at least 1 person dead. Heavy rains have affected several municipalities including Copiapó, Tierra Amarilla, Diego de Almagro, Chañaral and Alto del Carmen. Authorities have deployed emergency teams to aid with rescue efforts as at least 2 people are missing. Still in Chile, a delegation of the InterAmerican Commission for Human Rights is investigating the violations that have taken place during anti-government protests. The commission will be in the country until Friday. The specialists are holding various meetings with state officials and social movements in order to issue a report. It is expected that the delegation will draft a report on the various human rights violations at the hands of the state against protesters and the excessive use of force by police. Peruvian political leader Keiko Fujimori has been detained once again. On Tuesday, a judge sentenced Fujimori to a new 15-month jail term as prosecutors continue their investigation into her alleged money laundering. This new sentence comes on top of the 13 months she has already served in jail before her release last November. Keiko, the daughter of disgraced former President Alberto Fujimori, is accused of taking money from Brazilian construction firm Odebrecht to finance her presidential campaign. The Peruvian community in Venezuela has rejected statements made by their country's interior minister labeling Venezuelan migrants in Peru as criminals and also the announcement of a migrant hunting special unit. Let's have a look.
These are the declarations made by Peru's interior minister that sparked controversy.
These foreign criminals, these Venezuelans that enter our country to commit crimes, they only have two options: go to jail or leave the country.
Moran made these statements during a promotional video for the National Police, where he announced the creation of a migrant hunting special unit. The announcements were made while ignoring the fact that crime figures in Peru show that a mere 1.8% are committed by Venezuelans.
The unit will be focused primarily on fighting drug trafficking, kidnapping, violent crimes, and all other crimes that foreign citizens commit.
His statements were immediately condemned by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. They consider that messages that equate migration with criminality promote the stigmatization of Venezuelan nationals. As such, Moran's words seek to blame crime rates only on migrants. Venezuelan authorities also labeled the declarations as a xenophobic act and a violation against human rights that go against international norms, especially since around 800,000 Venezuelans live in Peru. The declarations raised concerns among the Peruvian community in Venezuela, like, for example, this Peruvian migrant who built his local restaurant and decided to stay in Caracas with his 3 children and 6 grandchildren.
I thank Commander Hugo Chavez because when I came to Venezuela, he welcomed us with open arms and helped us. I've been working here for 13 years. What is happening in Peru is a political strategy, because elections are coming up and that is why they are marginalizing Venezuelans.
In all countries, there are good and bad people. I don't think it's fair to generalize. I don't agree with a statement that calls Venezuelans thieves.
Peruvians are the 3rd biggest migrant colony in Venezuela, where migrants from all continents have historically been welcome.
Since I can remember, there have been foreigners. I have grown up with them, but I don't see the acceptance being the same in other countries.
Venezuelans are no different from anybody. We are the same as Chinese, Africans, Jews, everyone here. Anyone is free to come and do whatever they want.
It's due to these xenophobic attacks and a lack of opportunities that more than 15,000 Venezuelans have decided to return home in a program promoted by the government of President Nicolás Maduro.
Coming up, a look at the La Vea Campesinas trip to Venezuela. So don't go anywhere.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
On Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced the details of his so-called Middle East peace plan. The proposal was unveiled by Trump at a news conference alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The deal recognizes illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, and in a move seen as an attempt to fend off opposition, Trump proposed the creation of an independent Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem. Many Palestinian organizations have vowed to reject any plan that does not include their right to self-determination and the right of all refugees to return to the lands they were driven from by Israeli settlers.
Today's agreement is a historic opportunity for the Palestinians to finally achieve an independent state of their very own. After 70 years of little progress, this could be the last opportunity they will ever have, and last for a lot of reasons. We'll never have a team like we have right now.
Well, soon after the announcement, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas denounced Trump's plan. Speaking after a meeting of Palestinian resistance movements, Abbas said that no amount of financial incentives will make the people of Palestine abandon their struggle, adding that they will not accept any deal without the return of occupied territories.
I would like to say to the duo, Trump and Netanyahu, that Jerusalem is not for sale, and all our rights are not for sale and not for bargaining. Your conspiracy deal won't pass. If Jerusalem will go, would we accept a state without Jerusalem? It is impossible for any Palestinian child, or Arab, or Christian to accept this. This is why we told them from the beginning, no.
Residents in the Gaza Strip have also spoken out against the U.S. and Israel.
We call on the Palestinian factions to unite to face this alleged deal of the century. We as Palestinians absolutely reject it, in all its details, decisions and plans.
We do not recognize the deal of the century, as well as we do not recognize the U.S. nor Israel. Every person decides his fate, and we, as Palestinians, are a united people. The U.S. cannot discuss this deal of shame. We are against this deal.
Protests against Trump's announcements have been ongoing across the occupied territories. On Wednesday, demonstrators gathered in Al-Keba, north of the Jordan Valley, to express their anger at the United States and Israel for their continued attempts at removing them from their lands. Demonstrations are expected to continue throughout the week. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Palestinian refugees burned down the flags of the United States and Israel in protest to Trump's plan. Several organizations and movements, including the Arab League, strongly condemned the U.S. and Israel, saying their work lacks all principles required to achieve peace. In Turkey, a group of protesters gathered in front of the U.S. consulate in Istanbul to reject this attack on Palestinian sovereignty.
Called the deal of the century, will supposedly bring peace to the Middle East, but we will see an insurgency of the century against this agreement, which support and legitimize Israel's century of occupation. We will make efforts in Turkey to increase this insurgency. Zionist Israel should pay the price for the war crimes it has committed internationally. Sanctions must be imposed against Zionist Israel, and we defend the need of a boycott of Zionist Israel in every sector: economic, military, diplomatic, cultural.
And people in Yemen have also joined the growing criticism of Trump's Middle East proposal.
The Republic of Yemen condemns yesterday's show on the deal of the century, and the statement of the Yemeni Foreign Ministry was very clear. And I repeat it again. Anything that detracts from the rights of the Palestinian people, we reject it and condemn it, as a Yemeni people who is fighting with Palestinian people.
The first international mission of solidarity with Venezuela of La Via Campesina concluded on Tuesday. The 9-day mission was made up of activists of rural movements from Chile, Nicaragua, Mozambique, Uruguay, the United States, and Spain. The goal of the mission was to look into the struggle by the Venezuelan people against the U.S. blockade. The international guests visited the Paulo Freire Institute of Latin America Agroecology in Barinas and saw El Maizal Commune in Lara State. They got to know the Pikachu's Communal Council in Apure for lessons on the transition from conventional agriculture to agroecology.
They're very organized here. I mean, hundreds of families, thousands of people in a given comuna who grow all different kinds of crops, who raise cattle and hogs and chickens, and that produce contributes to the livelihood of the families who are there, who are part of the comuna, and also then is extended to local communities as well. So there's, in some cases, places where shops have been set up where people can, from the larger community, can come and have various food products available to them as well. We're here finding out that we have a responsibility of bringing a contrasting message back to the United States and to other countries, that what the corporate media is telling us is in fact overall inaccurate. La Via Campesina, we as a delegation will be preparing a report and then other ways to disseminate what our observations have been while we're here in Venezuela.
And the solidarity didn't end on the fields. The group took part in Venezuelan culture and music and attended a local political rally. La Via Campesina is an international movement made up of 164 organizations in 73 countries, representing some 200 million peasants, small and medium farmers, landless, rural, youth and women, indigenous people and migrants. Venezuela's National Assembly has approved the establishment of a commission to investigate the use of aid funds given to the opposition, of which lawmakers say there is no trace. The commission will investigate opposition members for corruption, including the self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido. They will look into the millions of dollars given to Guaido after the so-called Venezuela Aid Live concert held in Colombia last year, which never reached the people of Venezuela. A lawmaker from the opposition, Jose Brito, said they will also investigate the money given to these groups by U.S. organizations, including USAID. When we return, China's coronavirus epidemic continues to worsen. Stay with us for more.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur.
Chinese authorities say that just under 6,000 confirmed cases of pneumonia caused by the novel coronavirus have been reported as of Wednesday, with the death toll rising to 132. 65 cases of the coronavirus have also been confirmed outside of the Asian nation. The streets of major cities across China have become virtually deserted as prevention measures remain in full effect. 30 cities and provinces have launched a level 1 emergency response, while Hong Kong declared its highest emergency response.
Coronavirus prevention is definitely our top priority. The economy is a small matter for a country as big as ours. Everyone has contributed to prevention costs. Many enterprises and successful people are donating money to the infected areas. The money is not a big deal for our country.
Meanwhile, the 2 new emergency hospitals being built in the city of Wuhan are soon to be finished. Both hospitals will be fully dedicated to the treatment of patients infected with the coronavirus. Doctors in Wuhan, the city of 11 million people where the virus was first detected, had described overcrowded facilities and a shortage of test kits, protective gear, and other medical equipment. In response, authorities announced the construction of the first building on January 24th, and it is expected to be fully operational by February 3rd.
At this point, I'm basically working from 7 a.m. in the morning until midnight, with a 1 or 2 hour break in between, and on a 24-hour standby.
3 children have been killed and 2 others were injured in the Libyan capital Tripoli following clashes between forces loyal to the government of the National Accord and General Khalifa Haftar's so-called Libyan National Army. The GNA accused Haftar's forces of triggering the clashes by shelling locations controlled by them. The incident comes 2 weeks after the 2 sides signed a short-lived truce to end the months of fighting for the control of Tripoli. Residents from Zimbabwe's second-largest city face serious water shortages as local dams are running dry. Due to ongoing droughts in the past few years, water sources around Bulawayo have dried up, and residents have been forced to use water from unsafe sources. They are calling on the government to declare the situation a national disaster. Zimbabwe has been one of the most drought-affected nations in southern Africa due to climate change.
We have no option. Yeah, this water is dangerous. As you can see, just check. Someone did his rubbish here. There's nothing that we can do, you see. Yeah, but we still have to, because we need some water to use at home.
Actually, we're projecting that in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we might lose the third dam, which is Lower Yemen. It's currently sitting just above 10% in terms of capacity. And we have also put together a paper to government for us to be declared as a water shortage area.
Mali's former coup leader, Amadou Sanogo, has been freed from detention after being in prison for 6 years on charges of killing 21 soldiers. Sanogo and several others staged a military coup in 2012 after rebels took control of the country's north. The junta soon stepped aside due to international pressure, but during their reign, Sanogo and 16 others allegedly abducted and killed 21 soldiers who opposed the coup. The UN Security Council has met to discuss the crisis in Yemen as attacks have surged over the last few weeks after months of relative calm. The Council highlighted the importance of stopping the military escalation and called for the parties to re-engage in a political process. The renewed violence between a Saudi and UAE-led military coalition and Houthi rebels has already caused hundreds of casualties since it restarted almost 2 weeks ago. The president of Catalonia, Quim Torra, has called for snap parliamentary elections after the budget plan for the year was approved. His announcement came just a few days after he was stripped of his rights as a regional lawmaker by a Spanish court.
Once the conditions have been approved in Parliament, I will announce the date of the elections, and I will do so according to what is best for the country. It is under this criteria that I will decide when the elections will take place, which will serve as a new democratic mandate to advance towards a country of democracy, justice, and freedom.
And we end with news that France's biggest union is planning to continue protests against the government's proposed pension reforms until the bill is withdrawn. This as demonstrations escalate with other sectors joining the strike.
This government is trying to force its way through and is now using truncheons and intimidation against activists, strikers and demonstrators, particularly from the CGT. It is good that the government is desperate. that it is afraid. Well, we are going to tell them again today that the majority of citizens and employees will be mobilized until this bill is withdrawn.
That brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telasurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat Channel 461 in South Africa and Channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thanks for watching.